What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast here. We are live from the Xfinity studio, and we're mixing it up a little bit today here on this spring training afternoon. Christian Saez, Big Fly Spence, coming to you from a little bit of a different look. We're changing gears here on the DNVR Rockies show, and we're actually switching roles up a little bit. I'm going to be producing the show and hosting the show. Spencer's in the same room as me, so I'm literally across the room from Spencer. But we're doing this. We're hanging in there.
So are you going to thank yourself at the end for making us look good like you always do for the producer?
Yes. I think that's the plan. Perfect. I think I'm going to go. Yeah, I'll give myself a quick shout out at the end to make myself feel a little bit better. But we got a good show today. We've got a lot of things to talk about spring training. It feels like, we still got, 17 days left officially of spring training, or 17 days till opening day at least. But spring training fully underway, and I feel like every show that we have, we get a little bit closer to some decisions being made. Obviously, there are people who are getting, sent back down to the minor leagues. That's kind of becoming a daily occurrence at this point. But we're getting more questions answered, hopefully. I don't know, maybe there's some more questions coming up. So we'll talk about that as the show goes on. Also have a quick announcement to make. We are officially moving this show into in-season mode, which means instead of just having one Rockies show per week, we're going to be having two Rockies shows per week, back to our 2-show-a-week schedule. So for now, it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon. That's going to be our show schedule. It might change once the season actually starts. We might go Mondays and Fridays, which we did last year, and we loved the way that worked out. So we'll see as the season actually gets underway. But for now, Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon, we'll be live talking about the Colorado Rockies. And like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. On top of some of our spring training stuff, of course, we have World Baseball Classic to talk about, which, if I'm being completely honest, Spencer, I've kind of checked out of spring training just a little bit in favor of watching the WBC. I'm not completely out of spring training mode. I'm still keeping up with the highlights and stuff like that. But there's so many WBC games that I'm pretty much just all in on the WBC at this point. I just don't have time to watch any other spring training games. Yeah,
well, spring training, it felt significant for us when it started a couple weeks ago. And obviously we're excited to have baseball back, have the Rockies back. The team is really about with the whole new front office and new pitching regime and everything, and what they're working on and who we're going to see on the opening day roster, because a lot of this stuff is up in the air. So for the Rockies, it's fun, it's exciting. But the second that meaningless baseball gets taken over by meaningful baseball, which is the WBC, and even though, there are 12 Rockies out there playing in the WBC, not necessarily watching for those teams specifically. Obviously, both of us, well, myself and both of us being born in America, I know you're a Puerto Rico guy in the WBC, but have some ties to Team USA. And I will admit, last night I was watching the game with my wife, and when who's the chub? Alejandro Kirk from Mexico. Yep. When he grounded into the double play in the 9th inning or 8th inning, I was like, "Get up the line!" And my wife's like, "Are you cheering for Team Mexico?" And I don't feel as patriotic about Team USA because I have no connection to it. It's kind of like Team USA in the Olympics. I felt like I wanted Team Serbia to win the Olympic gold in basketball with Nikola Jokic. But it's not that I didn't want Team USA to win. I wanted to see some fireworks. I wanted to see a walk-off home run or a 9th inning home run. I forget what game it was the other day. Maybe it was Chinese Taipei and maybe Japan or whoever was playing. It was like 3 different home runs to take the lead in the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings.
Yeah,
that stuff is fun to me, especially when I have really no dog in the fight and don't care who wins the game. I just want to see him be intense. So I did find myself rooting for Mexico for a little bit of last night when they got it close at the end.
Yeah, just the underdog story sometimes too. I found myself rooting for Czechia the other night going up against Team Japan. You know, I mean, like I absolutely love the WBC. It's one of my favorite events. They need to need to move the WBC, or excuse me, they need to move baseball players back into the Olympics. That's a whole conversation. We'll talk more about the WBC, and of course, the whole beef between Cal Raleigh and Randy Arozarena. I want to get your guys' take on that too, but we'll give our takes on that as the show gets going. But we got some Rocky stuff to talk about, because the Rockies, although they've slowed down in the wins and losses category, I think they got blown out. What was it, like 12-3 or something like that yesterday?
It was a rough game yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't watch again, so I'm a little bit more involved in the WBC right now. But I am still keeping up with the individual stories and everything like that. And I wanted to start this show by doing a quick little segment presented by Xfinity. It's our Xfinity X Factor, and I wanted to ask the question: who is the X factor of spring training so far? Who, in your opinion, is having the best spring training all around, whether it be offensively, defensively, like encompassing who's the X factor of spring training so far for the Rockies?
I would say right now, if we're making it the X factor, both sides of the ball, Ryan Ritter's been a really good piece for this team. Being able to play left field, being able to play third, being able to play short, maybe starting at second when opening day lineup gets announced here in 18 days. And he's hit the ball really well too, on top of stealing a bunch of bases. I feel like Ryan Ritter's been the most consistent. And granted, Mickey Moniak has had a great spring.
Yeah.
The last 2 days he's been 0 for 3, and he's actually been in my stock down, where people and people were freaking out at me for that. They're like, yeah, he's hitting 415 this spring. And luckily, shout out to whoever had my back in the chat or in the replies, was like, he's saying it's an overreaction to the day. I'm like, yes, that's the point of this. Like, yeah. You could be hitting 1,000. If you go 0 for 2 and strike out and leave some guys on base, you're going to be stocked down for that day. That's just how it goes. Like, we're overreacting. But I'd say Ryan Ritter has cemented himself in my eyes as a player that deserves to make this team. With all the moving parts going around, you don't know what's going to happen at first base still. You don't know, excuse me, you don't know who's going to start at second, at third. Kyle Karros has had a great spring, but Ryan Ritter, with his versatility and his ability to play all over the diamond and steal bases, which has been a clear focal point for the Rockies this spring. It feels like every time a guy gets on first, doesn't matter if it's Hunter Goodman or Troy Johnston tried to steal a base the other day, they're going and they're trying to get to second base. So I think Ryan Ritter's my Xfinity X factor for the spring. So
love that. I love that. I was a little bit questionable on Ryan Ritter entering spring, because he's one of those Rockies players that I felt like I just didn't see enough from him last year. Obviously, we know what he's capable of, seeing him play in the minors, but that didn't fully translate, at least consistently, at the big league level last year. And so I was a little bit hesitant to put him in my stock up category consistently moving into spring training, but he is definitely working his way towards that. He's having himself a hell of a spring training. The other guy who, from my perspective, is probably having the best spring training, he is by far my Xfinity X Factor player of spring training, Kyle Karros, who is balling out in spring training, at least offensively. Granted, he's been playing some good defense too, but he's hitting a slash line of 474, 500, and 895 through his last 7 games. That's pretty solid. And Kyle Karros, similar to Ryan Ritter, same kind of situation. I came into this regular season, or the spring training, I should say, with a lot of questions of, is Ryan Ritter or is Kyle Karros, is he going to be a good enough player to stick at the big league level? Was last year just more of a situation where he was called up to the big leagues before he was ready? He showed moments of being good. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he was a terrible player, but I just didn't see enough. I mean, again, you have to look at this through the lens of, is this going to be a guy who can be present on a playoff roster at some point in the near future? That's the lens that you have to use when you evaluate these players. And while, yes, there's still room for development, and we're not saying that they're going to be there yet, I didn't see it last year from Kyle Karros, and I didn't see it last year from Ryan Ritter. So I've been very pleased to see both of those two players. And from my perspective, Kyle Karros stepping up and having a hell of a spring training. His defense has been good. His bat has obviously been great. So I loved what I've seen out of Kyle Karros, Ryan Ritter as well. Drop a comment in the Toyota chat if you guys have a suggestion. Like Luke says, Stevens or Sullivan, both guys, playing well. And we said it last week. We're seeing players getting hot in we're seeing the right players, I'll say, getting hot. It's not like you're seeing the Nick Martinis and the Sean Bouchards of last year that are having great spring trainings, or hell, even the Edward Julians or guys like that this year. You're seeing some of the young guys playing really well, and that's a really good thing to see. So I've been excited to watch spring training and get to kind of keep track of these things. But I wanted to kind of change gears here because we gave our Xfinity X Factors, plural. But now we want to look at the other side of the coin. And we did this last week, and maybe we can update that now. Is there someone that you're concerned about? And I wanted to start this by looking at Hunter Goodman because he's hitting, what is it, 095 this spring?
Not good.
Are we concerned about Hunter Goodman? And again, I know we kind of talked about this last week, but we've had now a week more of games underneath our belt to kind of give information from, to gather information from. Are we concerned about Hunter Goodman, or is this just the sophomore slumps, the spring slumps, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I'm going to look through the purple glasses on Hunter Goodman and say that this is just a spring slump for him. He may be working on some things. I think he talked about that. One of his first interviews during spring training talked about how he was working with the new hitting coaches, working with Warren Schaefer, trying to change a little bit of what he was doing. He said he found something obviously a little more towards the end of last year, but he's still chasing some pretty questionable pitches outside the zone. So that worries me a bit for Hunter Goodman, but I'm not going to crash out yet. And even though they don't relate to each other whatsoever, I'm very much like when I gamble, when I see trends, right? I just tend to fall in that trend. We've said this on the show multiple times, but the Rockies now have had 3 years in a row of a player breaking out during the regular season, even though it's a down year for the team as a whole. That player is Hunter Goodman this last year, Silver Slugger, one of the best offensive catchers in the National League, if not the best all around. And like Nolan Jones did 2 years ago, like Bretton Doyle did last year, they've broken down after a massive season in the MLB. Like, it's not like they're massive season in AAA and then they come up and they're not good. Like, massive MLB seasons, high level seasons, and the next year they come back and they're just not the same player. So that part worries me a little bit. Hunter Goodman has nothing to do with personally with Nolan Jones or with Bretton Doyle. There's different situations with each of the guys, but it does worry me a bit that we're going to see that slump that we've seen after such a great season from Hunter last year.
Yeah, and I think that's a normal fear because it's almost, I mean, you mentioned it, we've seen trends, but it almost feels kind of like PTSD, right? Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We talked about that being the Monfort curse, right, during this offseason, that, it feels like anything that can go wrong with the Rockies does go wrong. That's changed courses over the last 6 months, let's just say. But it does still feel like that. And it's funny, actually, we got this comment in the chat to open things up from Steve, who said, Dodgers already won the World Series before this season even starts. Baseball will continue to be unwatchable without a salary cap, and small market teams like the Rocks have unfortunately no chance. And it's funny because I do feel like there's a lot of Rockies fans out there that have this feeling of like dread. If you're actually talking about wins and losses, talking about this team eventually being able to compete for a playoffs or a championship one day, which we absolutely expect that they can, there's this feeling of like the cards are stacked against us, whether it's fate, and it feels like, what you're talking about is just bad fate, right? Bad luck. The Rockies have, Nolan Jones, this breakout player. He was in the conversation for Rookie of the Year, and then he just drops off the face of the earth the next year. And then Hunter Goodman becomes, one of the best offensive catchers in all of National League, and he's been playing incredible. And then, we're sitting here holding our breath, hoping that he can have the same success the year after that. It feels like a lot of things kind of tend to stack up against the Colorado Rockies, and you can put that on, like I said, bad luck, fate, ownership, whatever you want to say. But that's just the life of being a Rockies fan, right? And that's just the unfortunate reality is we tend to live our fandom through a lot of the lenses of fear. And we try to be as positive as we can on this show. We try to take a glass half full type of look because I think it makes baseball more fun if you can be a little bit more optimistic, right? Who wants to be living a pessimistic life? It's kind of a miserable way to live. We try to be as optimistic as we possibly can. But the reality is, there are concerns. And while I don't know if Hunter Goodman is in the boat of being concerned yet, because it's just spring training, and I always say spring training is the opposite of what you're going to see in the regular season. If you see something going well in spring training, usually like Senzatella being a really good pitcher last year in spring training. Usually the opposite happens once the regular season. That's just kind of the way it goes. But so I think this is more of just a wait and see. Hunter Goodman has a great swing. I'm fine with him working through things. I'm fine with him making adjustments. That's fine. That's what spring training's for. But once the regular season comes up, you got to let some of those things just slide off you and get going. And I also think I saw a Rockies alert yesterday saying that he was dealing with like some flu-like symptoms, which apparently I think Tyler Freeman is also out. Maybe I'm quoting the wrong person here. But there's another Rockies player who is out due to flu-like symptoms. So I don't know, maybe they've got a little flu bug going around the clubhouse right now that's causing some of these guys to go into a slump. Who knows? But I'm not super concerned. I think once the regular season hits, the guys who are good are going to be good. The guys who we don't expect to be good probably are going to level themselves out, and all will kind of go back to normal. And we just hope that the baseline continues to rise. The floor continues to rise, as we like to coin here on this show. So we got to pause for a break. After the break, I wanted to ask this question. We've been talking a lot about rebuilds. What does a rebuild look like for the Colorado Rockies? And we've been giving our take pretty much this entire offseason. But I wanted to do a little activity where we ranked the most important pieces to a Rockies rebuild in 2026, right? The Rockies taking a step forward in 2026. Who is most important in that rebuild? Drop a comment in the Toyota chat. Let us know what you think. We'll talk about that coming up after this break. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends right now over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and I cannot say enough good things about Toyota. And with summer right around the corner, if you're in the market to get yourself a new vehicle, maybe you've got some road trips planned for the summer months, maybe you just want to get up into the backcountry and you need a car that can get you there, well, Toyota has you covered. They have all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive options, hybrid options that can get you up into the mountains and back on as low a cost as possible. And also, especially with the prices of gasoline raising right now, maybe the hybrid option is the option for you. And I can't say enough good things about Toyota because I've been a Toyota customer my entire life. My mom drove a Toyota when I was growing up, and that eventually transitioned over to me. And now my 2024 RAV4, I'm excited to get up into the mountains and put some of those off-roading features to the test. So again, if you're in the market to get yourself a new Toyota, be sure to visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. It's AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota Eastern Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places. Well, I also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Raising Cane's because if you've got maybe some lunch cravings right now, kind of the middle of the day here at DNVR, got to go check out our friends at Raising Cane's. That's what I'm going to be doing right after this show is done. They have your craveable chicken fingers that you can enjoy for the rest of the day. They have everything handmade in restaurant every single day. So whether it's their hand battered chicken fingers, which is obviously what they're known for, maybe it's their cane sauce. Maybe you're someone who loves the sauce. We love the sauce here at the DNVR Rockies show, and they've got everything made every single day in-house. They also make their fresh squeezed lemonade, their sweet tea, which you can actually buy bulk in grocery stores. Again, you just can't go wrong with Raising Cane's. So stop by your nearest Raising Cane's location, get your box combo today, and make your craveable dreams a reality. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. All right, back here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. I asked the question before the break. If you had to rank the players that are most important for this rebuild, and again, this is a rebuild that's just kind of restarting. I know it's the 5,000th time that we've restarted this rebuild, but it feels like this one's the real one. It's the real deal. We're restarting the rebuild for the final time, hopefully, this year. But hopefully this is a step in the right direction this season. It's the first step of that new rebuild. If you had to say there was the most important piece player-wise of this rebuild on this roster, Spencer, who would be your number one most important part of this Colorado Rockies rebuild?
I would say my guy would probably be Ezequiel Tovar, which is an interesting choice because he's been part of the Rockies for the better part of 4 or 5 years now, and he is a homegrown talent, but he's killing it for Venezuela. He's having a good shortstop. Looking at a guy like Bobby Witt playing in the WBC, you're like, oh my God. Like when you have a good shortstop that has the talent level, I'm not saying Ezequiel Tovar is Bobby Witt, but Ezequiel Tovar is a damn good shortstop. He's a Gold Glove level shortstop. He can hit double after he may if he stays in Colorado long enough, maybe he gives Todd Helton a run for his money with the amount of doubles he hit. He won't get close, but I'm over exaggerating here. But Tovar is such a good player. And when you have a shortstop that's locked in, granted, the very interesting part about this whole equation is Ethan Holiday, the fact that he plays shortstop and you have Tovar. But right now for me, it's Tovar because he's in that realm of being a player that's helpful for the rebuild, but also still young enough and talented enough to be a veteran on a potential playoff seeking team when the Rockies try to do that in 2028 or 29 or whenever it ends up being. Like when the Rockies made the World Series in 2007, yes, they had some young guys for sure, but they also had some vets, and you have to have some vets that have been around that know how to conduct themselves. And granted, the Rockies don't have a ton of those vets, right? They've added a few, but to me, a guy like Tovar, even maybe a guy like Brenton Doyle a little bit, that have been in the system, that now all of these younger guys, the Ritters, the Karoses, the Amadors, if you want to throw him in there, all these younger guys that have kind of grown up playing baseball for the Rockies at Coors Field and have had semi-decent major league careers, those guys are going to be helpful in not only their play, but they're helpful in mentoring the guys that are coming up, that like the Ethan Holidays and the Charlie Condons that you expect to be the ultimate part of your rebuild, helping your team win in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, see, and I actually took the opposite approach. I went young on the rebuild because a rebuild by nature is, I think, you have to turn the page, right? You're turning towards the future of your organization. Now, I liked your point about, you got to have some veterans in that mix. And Tovar, although he is still super young, so is Doyle. You would consider him a veteran at this point. He's a major league veteran, or he's becoming a major league veteran from years played, experience at the big league level. But I went with the number one most important player when it comes to the rebuild in 2026 that needs to have a good season, Chase Dollander. Chase Dollander is the core. He has to be, in my opinion, if the Rockies want to truly start turning a page. Chase Dollander has to be at the head of the spear, because pitching is always a huge question mark when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. And that's, you don't need us to tell you that. But if you can have not only a guy that is just a good pitcher, but a guy who you drafted, developed, which we all know is a challenge for the previous regime of the Rockies, who's to say what it's like with the new Rockies pitching staff, but that you drafted and developed and took from someone who struggled to pitch at Coors Field last year and brought them to a point of, hey, this guy, we know he has the stuff, and we got that. We allowed him to thrive, whether it be at Coors Field or beyond, and he had a hell of a good season this year. I think that's huge, because not only does that mean that Chase Dollander had a good season and you can feel confident going into the future that he can be a guy for your rotation moving forward, but that also gives you a ton of faith in the organization, and saying that the changes that we've made, adding Matt Daniels, Alon Leichman as the pitching coach, some of these other front office pieces that can analyze all of these different stats and all of these different categories, that's working. Because Chase Dollander wasn't great last year. It wasn't bad. He had moments, but he wasn't great. So if he can turn the corner this year, I think that is a huge step in the right direction. And again, I go back to something I said a couple weeks ago when I had a conversation with Walker Monfort. We were at a dinner about a month ago, and I had a conversation with Walker Monfort, and he was telling me that, he's like, I look at it like Chase Dollander and Paul Skeens were drafted at the same time in the same class. They were both at the top of their class pitching-wise, and they have similar stuff, right? You could say Paul Skeens probably has a little bit better stuff naturally, but both guys throw 100 miles an hour. Both guys have great off speed. Like, they have the same tools. And yet Paul Skeens is pitching for Team USA and considered one of the best pitchers in the world. And Chase Dollander is still potential. He still hasn't reached that yet. And so Walker's point was, hey, we got to find ways to take the talent that we drafted and get them to the Paul Skeens level, or get them as close as we possibly can, right? Wring the sponge from as much juice as we possibly can get out of that. And so if Chase Dollander is a dog this year, if he's a stud, I think you answer a lot of questions, not just from the pitching side, but from the organizational side. So he, to me, is number one in my power rankings of who's most important to this rebuild.
Yeah, and I love that, because Chase Dollander, if you're imagining a world, walk with me on this, that the Rockies make the playoffs in 2029 and they're in the wild card game at Coors Field, they're hosting. And
It's a nice walk.
Chase Dolander is the guy you want starting that game, looking forward, 4 years from now. That he has that level of talent. He has the stuff. He has the demeanor about him. Everything is right with Chase Dolander, except for the fact that he walked too many guys last year, struggles to put guys away. We can get into all the semantics of it, but Chase Dolander has everything he needs to be an ace. Now it's up to Alone Likman, Matt Daniels, all of those guys in order to harness that stuff and make him into the ace that we all hope he could be. Because like you said, it's when we had John Gray, and John Gray was picked 3rd overall, I believe, from Oklahoma, came to the Rockies, ended up being, he was never a Ubaldo Jimenez for us or a Jeff Francis, like Felix is saying in the chat, but you could tell the stuff was there and then they just let him walk. But that was awesome because the Rockies brought that guy up. Like the Rockies are, even when they're a good team, let's say we're still on this journey and they're a good playoff team in 28 or 29, it's not going to be on the backs of trading for in their prime pitchers at 31, 32 years old. It's going to be hopefully, it's a Gabe Hughes, it's a Chase Dolander, it's a McCade Brown,
Yeah.
it's I'm forgetting Brody Brecht. Like those guys are leading their rotation. And then you supplement it with some 4 and 5 starters that are older vets that have, on the tail end of their career, but they're starting every 4th or 5th day for you and not starting a ton in the playoffs if you make the playoffs. So I think those guys, those younger pitchers, they're a key to the Rockies' future success, because we need to know that this new pitching regime, they are going to have their hands on these guys a lot longer than a guy like, Lorenzen and Chigano and the guys that are going to pitch a ton of innings for the Rockies this year. They've had long careers. They are what they are. But Chase Dolander, we don't know what he is yet. We don't know what Gabe Hughes is yet. We don't know what McCade Brown is yet. We don't really know what Tanner Gordon is yet. So a lot of these guys, even though they made their major league debut, we don't know what they're actually like as major league pitchers. And now all of that hopefully changes for the better with this new regime.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Moving down to number 2 on my list. I did top 5, by the way. So number 2 on my list was Ezequiel Tovar. And I see Luke said it in the chat. Spencer obviously went on his rant about it. And I think Spencer's logic is perfectly sound. And that's why I put Tovar at number 2. You've got him locked up already. You need someone who's had some big league experience. And I think you just need to get the most out of that contract, right? You need him. You know what he's capable of. He's a guy who can go 20-20 with Gold Glove defense. That's what you need out of Tovar. He doesn't have to be your best player. And we can get into who should be the best player here in 1 pick, maybe 2 picks, depending on what you think. But I think he has to be a very stable, solid presence. Number 2, most important player to the rebuild, Ezequiel Tovar. Number 3, this is where I go back to the youth movement, as we like to call it. Charlie Condon. And I think you could interchange Ethan Holiday and Charlie Condon here. I have Ethan Holiday at number 4. But I think either of these 2 guys, you have to hit on both of them. They, remember, the Rockies used all of their top draft picks already. We are now in the Rockies choosing, their draft pick is, what was it? What is it?
10. It'll be 10 or 11.
10 or 11 at this point from now on. You do not get a number, a 9 or higher draft pick anymore. You've already used up all of those cards. So you better cash out on those bets because you had the opportunity there. And to be completely fair, I do think the Rockies hit on both of those. Charlie Condon has played great this spring, and he's still super young. So is Ethan Holiday. Young, I mean. He's what, 19 years old, 20 years old, something like that. He's still a kid. So I think you have to, anytime you have a rebuild, you've got to hit on your prospects. And those are 2 of your top prospects. So 3 and 4, Ethan and Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie Condon is just a guy where he was in the depths of hell that we were in the last 3 years as Rockies fans, media, whatever. He was the guy that was still getting the national attention of like, oh my God, they drafted Charlie Condon.
Our savior.
What can he be at Coors Field? And that's a lot to put on a kid that young, but it's nice to know. Charlie Condon has had a great spring too. He could have been one of the X factors of this spring, to be completely honest with you. And it's nice to know that he went to Georgia. He went to college. He's not your high school kid that's not last name Holiday, because obviously we have high expectations for him too. But he's not a high school kid that we're just hopeful is going to grow into this major league body and be good. Like, he is showing us through spring training that he's borderline ready now. And we don't expect him to break spring training and be in Miami with the big club here in 18 days. but he's very, very close. And I wouldn't be surprised if Blaine Crim continues to be injured and Troy Johnston isn't your answer, and maybe TJ Rumfield, who is another breakout star of spring training, starts there and he's not as good as you had hoped. Like, we may see Charlie Condon a lot faster this year in 26 than we thought we would originally.
All things willing, I would love that. Number 5 for me, most important players in this rebuild for the Rockies, Brenton Doyle. And this could go two ways.
I was going to say, this is fucked from you because you are saying this from the standpoint of, if he's good, then you trade him and then you get prospects and then they help you rebuild. So go ahead and say it.
Yeah. You read my mind. You and I have had too many conversations outside of the show too. You know where I lean on this. Look, by all purposes, I want Brenton Doyle to be great, and I would love for him to be a part of this team long term. The reality is, he's one of your more valuable players that, in addition to having a relatively stacked prospect situation in the outfield with options like Mickey Moniak, Jake McCarthy, he is a card that you can deal when it comes to the trade deadline. It's not a situation like Tovar where you're like, you don't really have anyone to replace Tovar at that level, and you're locked into a contract with Tovar, so it would just be kind of dumb to trade Tovar. Same thing with Hunter Goodman. You don't have a next up man situation. With the outfield, we all know the Rockies have options in the outfield. Maybe they're not Brenton Doyle options, but they are options. And any sign of a rebuild is unfortunately having to trade players that maybe you just don't really want to trade, but it's better for the longevity of the team. So it goes two ways for me. Either Brenton Doyle gets good and he is another veteran like Tovar, and let's say they don't decide to trade him, and you just enjoy having a Gold Glove, hopefully 2020, all-star outfielder playing center field at Coors Field. I won't complain about that. I am not unhappy if Brenton Doyle stays on this team. But from my perspective, if all things go according to plan in this rebuild, I think Brenton Doyle is your biggest trade piece come July. I think you part ways with him, and I think that's why he's really important to this rebuild.
One thing that I am happy about is we don't know how good this new front office is going to be, but I think the win of going into this season with hope that the Rockies are going to raise the floor and be better, I also feel much more comfortable with the trade deadline coming up if they are going to make some trades, because we clamored for them to make trades last year, right? And they did. They traded Ryan McMahon. They traded Jake Bird. Both feel like pretty good trades. You got Rock Riggio out of it. You got TJ Rumfield now. Not the same trade, but you got him in a trade as well with the Yankees.
Mejia, right? I think it's the Mejia.
Shivy.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I feel comfortable with the Rockies making trades now, because 3-4 years ago and the regime of Bill Schmidt, although they should trade a guy like Ryan McMahon, you don't really want them to, because you don't know what you're getting back in return. You don't know if they're doing their due diligence and if they're actually getting good players back in return, or they're just getting fleeced every time. It felt like it was a constant fleece job by other teams. Whenever it's like the opposite of the Avs, right? If Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic call a team, you're about to get fleeced. The Rockies were on the other end of that phone call, where people would call them, and if they had something worthwhile, the Rockies were going to end up getting fleeced for it. So I don't love the trade of any of these guys right now, and the thought of it, because I actually like this young nucleus, and I think if they grow together, they could be a successful team here in a couple of years. But I will feel more comfortable trading away any of the younger players for some prospects, because I believe this new front office has a better idea of what they're going to get out of guys and what guys fit the mold of the team moving forward.
Yeah, we don't have PTSD yet from this new regime. Also think it's funny we call it the old regime and the new regime, like we're talking about like North Korea here, like some dictatorship. Yeah, but like I said, Rockies fans can kind of feel that, because it does feel like everything's been done wrong for the last few years, and that's just been the reality of it. 119 losses speaks for itself. How would we feel about a Jordan Beck trade instead of Doyle? That's a great question, and I still look. My take on this is there's only 3 untouchable players within the Rockies roster right now. It's Hunter Goodman, it's Chase Dollander, and it's Ezequiel Tovar. Anyone else besides those guys, if you can get a good enough return for them, I think you do it. I think you absolutely have to at least consider it. That's that's a hallmark of being a rebuilding team. So I absolutely think that if they get a good offer for Jordan Beck, at least consider it. I'm okay with keeping Jordan Beck. And you guys know, if you watch this show a lot, that similar to Kyle Karros and Ryan Ritter, I still am not fully sold on Jordan Beck yet. I need to see a little bit more, um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that comes around. So it's a good question though in the chat. Like I said, if you guys have any more questions, drop a comment in the chat. Let us know what you think. We've got plenty of topics and things bouncing around. So definitely let us know your thoughts. We're gonna pause for a quick break. After the break, let's talk about this catcher situation, because I think it's a little more competitive than we're talking about. So let's talk about catchers coming up. All right, back here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. So we knew that the catcher situation is set in stone in the sense that Hunter Goodman is your catcher, 100%. There was no one else who will be starting over Hunter Goodman. I think there was some brief kind of joking conversation that we had kind of entering the offseason of like, oh, what if the Rockies moved Hunter Goodman to first base? What if they moved him to the outfield, right? Like, he wasn't a catcher by trade. You got to keep his bat in the lineup. But what if the Rockies wanted to go somewhere else? The more we've talked to Warren Schaefer, although we haven't been at spring training, we were with him in winter meetings. We see the clips coming out of spring training. Hunter Goodman is your catcher, your starting catcher. And there's no conversations about moving Hunter Goodman anywhere other than behind the dish. What the question is who's the backup catcher? You've got Braxton Fulford, who, in my opinion, I think still probably holds down the best chance from my perspective. But you've had a couple other guys, Sullivan being another one, who's having great springs. And so, Spencer, I wanted to get your take on this because you and I have had some text communication around this. I think our buddy Hank has also texted us about this, and we've had some conversations off the air about, hey, what if they go with more of a veteran? Like, how do you think the Rockies approach their backup catcher situation? Because I also remember, just to preface real fast before I let you respond, the Rockies also did say that although Hunter Goodman is going to be the starting catcher, they don't want him overwhelming himself catching wise. They want to put him at the DH slot. So I do think it's not going to be a situation where he's catching every single day, 90% of the year. They're going to give him a lot of breaks. So you have to have a solid backup catcher. How do you think they approach that?
It's Hank has actually really changed my mind on this after we did our watch along for Team USA versus the Rockies last week, because Braxton Fulford, I love the guy. I first of all, I've never watched an at bat for Braxton Fulford, spring training or regular season, where he hits with a runner in scoring position and doesn't drive that runner in, whether it's a sac fly, whether it's a ground out, whether it's a base hit. I mean, I swear to God, his average with runners in scoring position is 1,000. Yeah, that's what it feels like. But at the same token, he's 27 years old. You drafted him in 2021, so not that long ago, 5 years. And Braxton Fulford is a perfect backup catcher when he's 30 years old, when he's 31 years old. I feel like he's maybe too young right now to just be a consistent backup to a Hunter Goodman, because you have two catchers now, if you go with Fulford and Goodman, who are not all that experienced at the major league level. If you enter a guy like Brett Sullivan, 32 years old, he is hitting the legit cover off the ball this spring. He's got a 600 on-base percentage. And I know it's spring, but I mean, it's not like he's 3 for 5. Brett Sullivan this spring is, where are those numbers at? I just had him.
He's having a good enough spring that I know who he is. Yeah, which is saying something.
He's 9 for 17, 3 walks in 20 plate appearances. He's hitting .529.
Yeah.
He's got 3 doubles. He's got 2 home runs. I mean, he's got 2 stolen bases, for God's sake. So
we love a catcher that can run.
Brett Sullivan is a much better version of what we had last year in Jacob Stallings starting the year.
Yeah.
A veteran catcher that doesn't need to catch every day, that you're comfortable with coming in every, Thursday day game and Sunday games or whatever it ends up being, where Hunter Goodman needs the day off. I feel comfortable with Brett Sullivan. And going into spring training, it was like, okay, if you would have told, that's one of the positions I wouldn't have even had a second thought about. I've been like, well, Fulford was pretty solid when he started last year. Obviously, Hunter Goodman's the best offensive catcher in the NL and getting better defensively year over year. That's your 2 guys. And Brett Sullivan's played, if he was hitting 300, which batting average isn't everything, I'm aware of this, but he's actually playing so well in spring training that he's making you think twice about if he should be on the roster or not.
Yeah.
It's not like he's good. Maybe we can start him in AAA, and if we need some help later on, he can come up. Like, he is playing well enough to where it actually is opening your eyes as to maybe he should be the backup catcher going into opening day. Give yourselves a veteran behind the plate instead of Hunter Goodman, who's 26 or 27, as well as Braxton Fulford, who's 27 years old. So I think playing Braxton Fulford every day at AAA is not the worst idea. And having a guy like Brett Sullivan who can help Hunter Goodman both defensively, offensively, spell him at catcher, and then be a guy that if you have to start him, you're not having this, you're going to have a drop off from a silver slugging catcher. You know, Cal Raleigh's backup. The guy doesn't come in there and expect to be Cal Raleigh, but Sullivan has done good enough this spring that I believe he should probably be the backup to start the year and send Braxton Fulford down to AAA and get him consistent at bats, consistent days behind the plate, and see where it goes.
Crazy third alternative. Is there a world in which they go with 3 catchers? I would assume no, right? But I had talked to a pretty knowledgeable Rockies reporter the other day who said, you know, what if, right? What if it's the Rockies haven't ruled it out? I don't think that would be a good move because you're taking at bats away from, like you said, Braxton Fulford, who just, if you're not going to have him on the roster or on the big league roster, send him back down. Let him get some swings. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm actually really not upset either way. It's not like the Scott Stallings situation last year where, you know, he no matter how good he was playing, I didn't want him a part of the team. Right.
Right.
I'm okay either way, which is a nice place to be. And that kind of leads us to our next topic, which is the bench situation. What does the bench situation look like right now for the Colorado Rockies, right? You've got Tyler Freeman, he can play infield, he can play outfield. You've got Edward Julian, hell, Edward Julian might even start. I don't think he will, but he could start. He could start at first base, second base. I mean, you know, he could theoretically play anywhere in the infield if you need him to. You've got Mickey Moniak, who's also in the outfield, but kind of doesn't have any room out there right now. So what does the bench situation look like? And we'll just go with those 3 guys, Mickey Moniak, Edward Julian, Tyler Freeman, assuming those are the 3 guys, or assuming those 3 guys are in the conversation. I mean, who comes off the bench? Like, who are you most interested in seeing getting more playing time? How do you handle this whole bench situation? Because you can make an argument for all 3 of those players, at least Tyler Freeman and Mickey Moniak, as guys who could be getting good playing time. But you also might not have room for them. And again, that's a good problem to have. But I think the bench situation is an interesting one as well.
Yeah, I think the Rockies actually have a position of strength here because what we've seen, if we're taking the sample size of what we've seen from spring training and from guys like Ryan Ritter, Kyle Karros, we know Willie Castro is going to start somewhere. He's had a phenomenal spring. He's been great in the WBC. We know that Willie Castro will start somewhere, so it leaves a position which we don't know yet because we don't know where Willie Castro could start due to his versatility. I honestly think that having these guys on the bench is a great thing for the Rockies going forward because having a Tyler Freeman and having an Edward Julian allows you to, you know what those guys are, right? You have a pretty good idea of what their major league careers are like. It allows you to start a Ryan Ritter who you don't really know who he is yet and a Kyle Karros and also feel comfortable about any of these guys coming off the bench if they're not playing as well as you'd hoped or they're not, you know, taking good at bats. They're not having a good process like you hope. Like, we know the Rockies aren't going to win a ton of games this year, but they're really focused on the process and what it looks like to be a good major league team. Like, they can't be a good major league team this year. I guess I shouldn't say can't. They probably won't be, but they need to start looking like it and start figuring out what that looks like. That's the point of 2026 for the Rockies. And last year, where our crash outs came was the Edward Julians, the Troy Johnstons, those guys this year. Last year it was Martini and Farmer, and those guys, they were starting and playing. Like, they started opening day, and Nick Martini was in the lineup. Now, he played well for like 2 to 3 weeks, but they were in the lineup, and you're sitting there with younger guys on the bench. I think these guys on the bench actually make it a position of strength for the Rockies because then you're playing younger guys, but you have consistent veterans that can be there if something's not going right. And they're playing because the other guy's not playing well. They're not playing because they're the veteran. They're playing in spite of another guy playing well. And that's where you want the Rockies to be at this year. And luckily, shout out to baseball. I've said this a few times on the pod for getting a DH in the National League. One of the greatest things ever, especially for the Rockies at Coors Field. They really need to use that. Mickey Moniak should be a left-handed bat. That's your DH most days, starting the year at least. And then Tyler Freeman just has so much versatility that if he's shown this spring already, he's only played a few games, but he kind of picked up where he left off last year, was one of the better hitters in the entire National League for a good part of last season. And if he's going to put up those numbers and going to drive in runs and going to be on base and hit at an insane clip like he did through about July last year, you can't not play a guy like that and just say, oh, well, Ryan Ritter should probably play. Like, they've told us they're going to play guys that deserve to play there. So honestly, Tyler Freeman, I don't love him, and maybe he's a trade piece just because I don't believe he's part of the future, and I want part of the future to be on the Rockies roster now. I think Tyler Freeman and Mickey Moniak are guys that you don't necessarily want Tyler Freeman being your DH due to the lack of power, but they're guys that I feel comfortable being on your bench. And if Ryan Ritter starts, I feel good about Tyler Freeman being behind him and Tyler Freeman being able to play right field and play second base and be pretty versatile. The Rockies have a ton of versatile guys, and that's what makes predicting this roster so tough for us. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 18 days. We don't know who's going to break camp with the Major League Club. They could go the route of last year and have a bunch of the Troy Johnstons and Edward Julians and send, Ritter down and Karros down. I don't think both of those guys will get sent down, but they could. We have not really seen what this new regime coupled with Warren Schaefer, who's been around the Rockies for all of his career, are going to do with the roster. So it's very tough to predict. I would honestly say it's probably one of the toughest rosters, if not the toughest roster to predict in all of Major League Baseball this spring, because there's so many guys that are versatile and they have so many guys that are young, and all of their veterans are guys that especially the ones from outside the organization, are guys that they signed with the hope that they're going to be better than they were the last couple of years, i.e. Julian, Castro, guys like that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it might feel like a good problem to have, saying, oh, we have all this competition, right? It's so hard to make these decisions. But the reality is the truly good teams, for the most part, know who is breaking camp on to make the big league roster. They don't have to make those decisions, right? So that's still a byproduct of the Rockies being in a rebuild, is the fact that we don't know who's going to win these spots. There's just a ton of competition, but no consistency. But the cool thing about this too is the fact that I agree with you completely. The guys who are on your bench, the Tyler Freeman, Edward Julian, Mickey Moniak, as of now, if someone gets called up, let's say Edward Julian is there as a backup first baseman. Let's just say that's the role. Blaine Crim is starting at first base. Blaine Crim's not playing very well. And you say, you know what, Charlie Condon, who, like Perk says in the chat, starting the season in AAA, which is absolutely going to happen. He's crushing the ball in AAA. He's ready to come up to the big leagues. It's not like you put Edward Julian into that role first and you move Charlie Condon to the bench. No, you move Charlie Condon over Edward Julian, and he becomes your starting first baseman. These are guys that their role is going to be a bench player, unless they're just crushing it. But their role should be to be a bench player. So, it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on, but it's a good conversation to have. Now, I see people in the chat, though, talking WBC, and we got to talk some WBC as well. Let's pause one more time, and after we come back, it's on to the World Baseball Classic. Okay. World Baseball Classic, man. I said it at the top of the show. If you guys missed it, I have kind of tuned out spring training a little bit. And again, it's not intentional. If there was no WBC, I'd be locked into spring training. And Spencer, you said it best. If we had if spring training was our meaningful baseball, that's what we'd be consuming. But we actually have meaningful baseball in the WBC. Their teams are playing for things, and we're seeing Rockies players playing for something bigger than just spring training. So it is electric, and it has been an absolute blast to watch. And it's why it's my favorite. Like we talk about, like the Olympics and the Four Nations was incredible last year. Like all of those kind of like in season, you could say, tournaments. WBC is by far my absolute favorite. And I'm biased because I'm a baseball guy, but seeing, my team Puerto Rico, I root for Team Puerto Rico because some of my family is from Puerto Rico, but Team USA out there crushing it. The Dominican Republic, Team Japan, feels like a lot of it's still up in the air. There's not like one team. You can make the argument that Team USA is like, dominant. They're a juggernaut. But then you go watch the Dominican Republic and you're like, geez, these guys are just all studs. Team Japan, same thing. So it bodes the question, if we're going to keep it in Rocky's world for a moment, which Rocky is most likely to win the WBC, to win a championship in the WBC. Who do you think brings home the hardware, if any?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go a little off the beaten path here. I think there's a solid answer for Ezequiel Tovar and Team Venezuela.
Okay.
They have already get advanced to the quarterfinals. Their pool was quite a joke. The Dominican Republic is good as well. Israel, Netherlands, Nicaragua, all three of those teams just not good. Shout out Cole Carrig on Team Israel. But I put a bet in at the beginning of the WBC, and their entire roster is actually filled with their entire starting staff is major league pitchers from the MLB. Their bullpen is mostly major league pitchers, and a lot of their lineup is major leaguers as well. And that's Team Italy. Michael Lorenzen on Team Italy.
I haven't watched a second of Team Italy.
Well, you're going to tonight because Team Italy takes on USA tonight, and Team Italy has got some studs, and they are in a tough pool. They're down in Houston with USA, Mexico, Great Britain, and Brazil. Obviously not great, but Mexico, we know Mexico Team USA game last night, pretty fun. Mexico is one of the favorites, if not, pretty close. Like USA is by far and away the favorite, but if Team Italy can beat the USA tonight, they will advance to the quarterfinals, and they've got some studs that have a chance at winning it in the WBC.
Yeah, dude, it's good. It's good baseball, man. It's so fun to watch. I also love the cultural side of it too. Like you get to see in Japan, they're playing in the Tokyo Dome, and you hear all the chants, and you see they have cheerleaders. I always love watching there's the women who do the concessions. They bow every single time they go and ask each different section if they want beer. It's just cool to see the cultural stuff. You go to Puerto Rico and everyone's banging on drums, playing trumpets, and I'm just imagining bringing a trumpet into a Rockies game and just blasting that thing at Coors Field. But it's been really fun baseball. But there's also been some drama, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I don't know if you've seen the fact that Team USA, their catchers, Will Smith and I think was it also Team Australia did that as well. I think Team Australia's catcher did this, but they're not shaking hands with the batters, right? Because a lot of these guys are teammates on different teams, right? So, for example, Cal Raleigh, which this just happened last night. Cal Raleigh, catcher for the Seattle Mariners and catching for Team USA, facing Team Mexico. Randy Arozarena, who's Cal Raleigh's teammate in Seattle, and I'll show you this video. You can see this. Randy Arozarena, if you're watching on YouTube, goes to shake hands with Cal Raleigh, and Cal pretty much shakes him off nah, dude, I'm not shaking your hand. Randy kind of leans in what's going on? Are you sure? And Cal says, nope, I'm not shaking your hand, not giving you a high five, whatever. Okay, so people are speculating. Maybe it's because of the pine tar. Catchers don't want to high five, the batters because they've got pine tar on their hands. Or maybe he's just trying to be uberly competitive and saying, hey man, I'm your opponent right now. I get that we're friends and whatever off the field, but right now I'm your enemy. But it's kind of a weird vibe, if I'm being completely honest. So I wanted to get your take on this, Spencer. Is this us blowing it out of proportion? I mean, it's all over Twitter right now. People are freaking out about it. And Randy actually responded, which I'll get to his response in a second, which made it even bigger. But what is your reaction to this? Do you think this is just good old competition? Is this just them being friends? What's going on?
I don't know. To me, it's a little over the top. Maybe more on the competition side. But if I was a Mariners fan, which you are kind of a pseudo Mariners fan at this point, I'd be kind of crashing out about this.
Oh, for sure.
That would be if Nathan McKinnon and Brock Nelson from Team USA and Team Canada started hating each other because they played in the gold medal game. Now, granted, this is just pool play, but when you see, if a Rosarina wasn't a Mariner, it'd be a no big deal.
Sure.
But these guys in the MLB, you play 162 games together. You spend the better part of March or, February 28th through late September, early October together every single day. It would kind of concern me being a Mariners fan and seeing that reaction to teammates. If they're not teammates, whatever. They're definitely against each other. Team Mexico versus Team USA. It was a great game. It was insane to see the amount of fans for Team Mexico compared to Team USA, even though the game was in Houston.
It's Houston,
kind of fun.
baby. Yeah.
It made it an electric atmosphere. Yeah. But Yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned if I was an M's fan. I'd be like, I don't know if I really love that.
Dude, so get this. So this, I don't know if you guys had seen this on Twitter. Again, it just came out this morning. Randy Arozarena did a post-game interview. He did it in Spanish, so this was translated from Spanish to English, so it might kind of sound a little funky from translation, but this was the translation when he was asked after the game about that interaction with Cal Raleigh. This is what he said, quote, "How do you think I should respond to Cal Raleigh? How should I put it to him? I want to say it in 4 languages. First in Spanish, the only thing he should be thankful for is having great parents. He's very well educated, thank God. I was lucky enough to see them a few days ago at the hotel. They came over to greet me, gave me a big hug, and were genuinely proud to see me. After that, I want to give it to him straight Cuban style. What he has to do is fuck off. Mexican style, go to hell. And in English, that fake ass good to see you he hit me with, he can shove it straight up his ass. I'm out." What, dude?
Wow.
Yeah. Like I see that and I'm like, okay, part of me thinks he's kidding, right? Like these guys are teammates. Like you said, they spend 162 games and more playing with each other, hanging out with each other. And I always wonder too, if like these guys coordinate before the game sometimes and are just like, you know what we should do? We should do this little social experiment. We should just like mess with the media, pretend to hate each other, like cause a little beef during the game and see how people react. Like I feel like that's almost like a game to some people. I don't know if that's what they're doing. But if that's true, if that was said with actual, you know, animosity from Randy Arozarena's side, if I'm a Mariners fan, yeah, I am absolutely freaked out about that, man. Like that's not good. Dan Wilson was asked by a Mariners reporter, Dan Wilson, the manager of the Mariners. Bless you. Third time's a charm. He was asked by a Mariners reporter, about it, and he said, I'm not worried about it. Right? He's the manager. He's going to downplay it, but he did say, I am going to call them both separately after this is done and talk to them. Because I'm like, he's like, what the hell is going on?
Stars who were a couple at bats away from being in the World Series, and you're like, I can't have this on my plate all summer long. I don't need that.
But is this like the same situation? Go back in time to a simpler era when we were watching Kobe Bryant playing in the Olympics when he plowed over, what was it, Pau Gasol, with who was he playing for? Whoever
Pau Gasol is it Brazil,
maybe, yeah. And they were in like a medal game, and Kobe like trucked Gasol, and they were on the same team. Spain, thank you. They're on the same team in the NBA, and that was just a kind of like, it was a competitor thing, right? We all know who Kobe was, and that was the situation with that. So maybe it's the same thing. I just think it's weird. Also, if you're doing the whole pine tar thing, give him knuckles, right? You don't have to get pine tar on your hand. Just give him knucks, right? Hey, I don't want to get pine tar. Here's my no. I don't know. It just feels weird. Yeah, Scott says, do you trade Randy? I don't know.
To me, honestly, it's a little more concerning because now, and this is the point of the World Baseball Classic, is they're from different parts of the world. They're different upbringings. Rosarena playing for Team Mexico, Cal Raleigh from the United States. To me, it's a little more concerning because they have different cultures, and they yes, they're friends, and I'm not saying you can't be friends with anybody that's outside your culture. That's not the point. Not the point of the world. I have a ton of friends that are not from Elizabeth, Colorado, or Denver, Colorado, but it makes it a little more concerning that like you wouldn't think if Kyle Raleigh was doing that to one of his teammates that played on Team Italy just because his grandma's 1/8 Italian and he's actually from America and he's a guy with the same culture that grew up as Cal Raleigh, I wouldn't be as worried. But since these two, that sometimes those lines can get blurred, and the translation of things can get fucked up because they're not from the same upbringing and speak the same language consistently.
And that's exactly my point. Like I don't speak Spanish fluently. I can understand some Spanish. Again, some of my family's from Puerto Rico, but I don't fluently speak Spanish. And so I'm like, was that lost in translation? Especially the Spanish to English translation could sometimes get, a little bit muddled, because the words are backwards in certain order, that kind of stuff. So regardless, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. This isn't a Mariners podcast, but it was wild to watch and to see that unfolding and then seeing it on Twitter and being like, holy shit, this is like, yeah, if I'm a Mariners fan, I'm totally crashing out right now.
100%.
So, but I'm still excited to see this WBC continue. The pool play has been incredible. It's like almost overwhelming because there's so many good games, but I am so ready for the Team USA versus Japan or the Japan versus the Dominican Republic. Like those are the games. I remember I went to in 2017 it was the last WBC championship. I was at Dodger Stadium. I was at the game for the World Baseball Classic Championship. It was Team USA versus Puerto Rico. And there were probably more Puerto Rican fans at the game than there were US fans. And I think the US won like 8-0 or something. It was actually kind of miserable from a Puerto Rican standpoint. But it was so fun. Like just the atmosphere. Like you felt like you were going to a soccer game. You know, I mean, there's, like I said, people were like dancing and chanting and horns and, you know, it was wild. It was unlike any experience you've ever had. So if you're a baseball fan and you've never gone to a WBC game, put it on the bucket list for baseball because it literally feels like you're at a World Cup game, but with baseball.
I'm actually mad at you that you didn't dye your hair blonde like Team Puerto. I have a buddy that is.
I asked Marissa about it and she shot me down.
Oh,
she said,
man, that would have been so good.
We're taking like baby pictures and stuff. And she's like, no dyeing your hair blonde.
I have a buddy that's Team Puerto Rico fan and he's in Miami watching the games and he dyed his hair blonde. Sent us my brother and I a picture of it. I was like, now I'm wishing you would have done it.
Look, I told her, I was like, if I say it on the show, then you don't have a say. I just have to do it because then it's for work.
Okay,
right?
If Puerto Rico wins the WBC.
No. If they go to the championship, I got to do it for the game.
Okay, if they go to the championship, verbal is binding on this pod. I've shaved my head because of Shohei Ohtani. if Puerto Rico goes to the World Baseball Classic Championship, you have to dye your hair blonde the night before the game and have it for the game.
Okay, all right. If Marissa's watching, you heard it here, Marissa. It's for work. It's, you know.
And then you can shave it and look like Justin Bieber after.
Dude, if I shave it, I'd look like Nolan Arenado, man. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's good seeing Rockies balling out. I'm hoping we see some more from Willie Castro. He's been fun to watch for Team Puerto Rico. Shugano, I don't think we've seen yet.
Shugano pitched 4 innings.
Did he? I didn't see it.
He allowed no runs and had 4 hits given up, but Tovar is crushing it. Tovar's been great. And I love
Bernardino pitched really well the other day. Vodnik, a little dicey.
Some of my favorite stuff is the guys that play for like the leading RBI guy for Chinese Taipei is Stuart Fairchild.
Yeah, I know.
That shit is cracking me up.
Seth Whitcomb for Team Korea.
Yeah. It was like Chinese Taipei versus Japan, and it was like Dane Dunning versus Stuart Fairchild in the batting box. That shit was great.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, I love it. All right, good stuff, guys. Well, this was fun. We got to wrap things up here on the show. Again, we have a new schedule, so we will be back with more Rockies coverage on Thursday at noon. Now, 2 shows per week, Tuesday, Thursday. Set your calendar, set your alarms, do whatever you need to do. And we'll be back on Thursday, hopefully with some other great Rockies stuff to talk about and more World Baseball Classic to talk about as well. Thank you for watching. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast right here from the Xfinity studio. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.